Have you ever given or been the recipient of a random act of kindness?
There have been many random acts of kindness shown to us throughout our time in ministry, and of course, we have demonstrated random acts of kindness. But one stands out in my mind. We were in seminary, and I was teaching. We had little money when we got married, and lived on 50 a week all summer while we lived in Pass Christian Miss, where JW was the interim pastor. At the end of the summer, we left the church and moved to New Orleans. We were living on the campus of New Orleans Seminary. I was in my first year of teaching. I recall that I was to be paid $555 a month, and we thought we could easily make ends meet on that amount of money. We received a bill that needed to be paid soon, but I don't remember what it was for. However, I had not yet received payment, and we did not have the funds. The next day, we received a check for 50 in the mail. It was from a family in the Tabernacle Church in Carrollton. JW had been the pastor of the mission they had sponsored and then served as their interim youth minister for a few months before attending seminary. This family felt led to send us that check, and it was enough to cover our overdue bill. You can say that was a coincidence, but I know that the family was listening to the Lord's leading and sent that check because of our need. He took care of us through that family. Many times I look back and see how God has led us or used others to take care of us. Never ignore his whispers to you.
Tell me about one of the best days you can remember. What do you consider one of your greatest achievements in life?
I have had many great days. You cannot live as long as I have and not have been blessed with many great days. Too many to name, but I guess the best day was the day I became a Christian. We had been in a week of revival at our church. When I was growing up, our churches would typically hold a week of special services at night in the spring and summer. We would call these services revival services and usually have a guest preacher for them. I had felt all week that I should accept Christ as my Savior, but I kept putting it off. I finally realized that I could put it off no longer, and I became a Christian on Friday night of the revival. I had no idea at the time that it was the best day of my life. I was only 10 years old, and I knew that Jesus would be with me for the rest of my life. I had a lot to learn in the scriptures about how he would guide my life. It would take a lifetime to let him lead and follow him. It has been an incredible journey, one of which I have been woefully lacking. But the Christian journey is a work in progress. You never let up on prayer and Bible study. It is a lifelong journey. If I had not made that decision on the best day of my life, I would have had many more bad days in my life. Being a Christian does not guarantee that things will always go well. It means that because of my faith in Christ, I can cope and understand that I do not have to navigate difficult times alone. And then in good times, I have someone special to share with. It's hard to say anything is the greatest, least, or best in my life. So I am going to focus on an achievement I accomplished that I had doubts about. I had always wanted to earn my master's degree and thought that when we moved to Riverdale, I would attend school full time and complete my master's in a year. However, we had not sold our house in Dublin and could not afford two house payments. So I got a teaching job 2 weeks before school started in 1984. I had three precious children at home in junior high and elementary school and was teaching a Sunday school class, singing in the choir, leading the children's choir, and teaching school. I had my plate full and couldn't consider going back to school. Also, we were adjusting to a new church and a new community. After Jeffrey graduated from high school in 1989, I began to consider returning to school. JW really encouraged me to do this since it seemed that I would make a career of teaching. Earning a master's degree would enhance my paycheck and also improve my retirement benefits. After much prayer and deliberation, I began at Georgia State in the winter of 1990. My first class was transformational geometry. My class was off campus and met in Tucker, GA. So after teaching, I would head up to Tucker for a 2 3 hour class every Tuesday and Thursday that quarter. Any class that started with MA met twice a week instead of once. I had not been in a classroom as a student in 22 years. I was so intimidated. I was the oldest in most of my classes. I remember crying all the way home several nights because I did not understand the material. But I had a great professor who explained the concepts very well. I made an A in the class. I took another class during the spring quarter, but I was unable to take summer classes. I took one class a quarter during the next school year. So in the summer of 1992, I took 3 classes and then completed the fall quarter. It took me 3 years to complete my degree. I was thrilled to finish. I am considering pursuing my specialist degree, but most of the classes I have taken were offered in both the master's and specialist degree programs, so I knew that I would have to take more advanced math classes. JW and I decided that it was not worth the frustrations that it would cause. Now that I am in retirement, I am so glad I persevered and got my master's. It has benefited the retirement check. JW and I joked that he had his doctorate and wanted me to call him Dr. JW. I said only if he would call me master.
What are your favorite possessions? Why? What is one of your fondest childhood memories?
In-laws and grandchildren, but they are not possessions. The Lord has allowed them to be in my life for a season, and I am so grateful for those loving relationships. As for a material possession, I value my wedding rings. Here is some history on those rings. We got engaged in December 1967. I did not have an engagement ring when we first got engaged because JW wanted me to pick it out. I was home for the Christmas holidays and JW was in Carrollton. He went by the local jewelry store and told them he planned to see me in Marietta and we were interested in a ring. They gave him a pocket full of diamonds and settings to bring to Marietta. This would never happen today. On the way, he broke down in his old Volkswagen Beetle. He was probably on the 3-year engine by then. He called me, and I don't know how he got to a phone. My friend Joyce, who lived near me and was in our wedding, got in the car with me, and we went to rescue JW. I wonder if anyone thought this young man had a pocket full of diamonds. We chose a half-carat diamond and a silver swirl setting. It had a matching band. Sue Beautiful. I had the ring on my finger within the week. As time passed, my ring setting became increasingly loose. The jeweler would repair it and it would be fine for a year or so, but then it would get loose again. By this time, we were living in Vienna, but we're using a jeweler in Calhoun. The jeweler told me that the ring could not be repaired again. I was heartbroken to have to choose a new setting, but I could keep my diamond. I chose a yellow gold wide band and a matching wedding band. I have enjoyed this set immensely. For our 25th anniversary, JW gave me a band with a set of small diamonds. We had those welded to the engagement ring. About 5 years ago, I was informed again that my ring setting was weakening and I was at risk of losing my diamond. So I had a new head put on the band with the same diamond. Last year, I had to get all the rings cut off my finger due to enlarged knuckles caused by arthritis. They were resized, and now I plan for this new sizing to last me a long time. I love my rings because they represent the love I have for JW, and that love has continued to grow throughout our 52 years of marriage. They also represent a great deal of love for all our children, in-laws, and grandchildren.
Where did you go on vacation as a child, Granna?
We always went to see family in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and New York. Mother had a brother Wayne and a sister Bessie in Kingwood, W. Va, where she was born and raised. She has 2 sisters, Ethel and Pearl, who lived in Cambridge Springs, PA. Her father had a sister, Betty, who lived in Ballston Spa, New York. So we would pile in the car and head north. Mother's brother, Paul Budd, who lived with us, usually went with us. We usually went in the summer, but one time we went for Christmas. I recall traveling all night in the summertime to reach West Virginia. It was cooler and less crowded at night. Bill, Michael, and I would sleep, and Mother, Bud, and Daddy took turns driving. The curvy roads getting to West Virginia were terrible, and I always got motion sick. We always stayed with Wayne and his family. His son, Larry, who is my age, played football for the University of West Virginia. Wayne worked in the coal mines. There were always people to visit since Mother and Bud had grown up in the area. We would stay in West Virginia about 3 or 4 days, then head on up to Pennsylvania. Pearl and her husband lived on a farm and had some dairy cows, but not many. We would visit there during the day and play in the barn. Ethel and her husband owned a big dairy farm. We always stayed with them. Eddie, Ethel's son, would help us explore the farm. I recall going out to the pasture where there was a creek and fishing. Then we would follow the cows as they returned to the barn for the afternoon milking. I wanted to help milk, but it was not easy. Actually, they used milking pumps instead of hand milking. I watched as Pop took the milk buckets to the milk house and poured them into the large milk cans. You used to see these as a decoration on porches. Then the milk truck would come and take it off to sell. We never got up early enough for the morning milking. Ethel decorated cakes for weddings, and I was always amazed at watching her create her special designs. They were always spectacular. She let me help make roses, which we could eat, so she didn't have to put them on the cakes. Daddy would go to New York to visit Betty and her husband and leave us on the dairy farm. He would come back to get us, and we would head to Georgia. Our trips were typically around 2 weeks long. One year, we ventured to make this trip at Christmas, and we had a white Christmas. I was not aware of any issues in traveling due to the snow. That was the year the Chipmunks came out with their Christmas song. I remember Eddie had gotten a record of it and would play it and pantomime it for us, and we were totally entertained. Christmas in Pennsylvania was a lot of fun. That year, Bud did not go, and we all left Pa and went to New York. Betty and Harry lived near a lake, and we got to go out to see it. We were amazed to see frozen waves on the lake. I do not recall trying to ice skate. These are just a few memories.